Audemars Piguet is celebrating its 150th anniversary, and to mark this occasion, they just released today a bunch of new releases that are pretty interesting, but overall, I consider it to be pretty boring, so let's get right into it. Guys, if you enjoy these kind of videos, please be sure to like the video, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. As always, I really appreciate your support. We're closing in on that 10,000 subscriber mark, which is just absolutely amazing. I would love to hit 20,000 by the end of the year, but let's get right into today's video topic, which is Audemars Piguet's new releases. Now, of course, as I mentioned earlier, it is the 150th anniversary of the Audemars Piguet brand, and I personally have some big expectations because in 2022, Audemars Piguet celebrated the 50th anniversary of the launch of the Royal Oak, which was a huge milestone, and they came out with some absolutely amazing watches that I think are still some of the best looking Royal Oaks released to date. And so my expectations for AP are really high, as the benchmark was really set really high by themselves by creating so many amazing timepieces. Let's start first with the release of a new ceramic offshore, essentially an update to the 26383 CE, I believe is the reference, which was the kind of first edition of the ceramic beast offshore that we've ever seen. And now there's an updated version with a slightly slimmer bracelet and an all black dial. To be honest, this is really nothing to write home about overall. I like the all black look. It feels very tough and like just very macho looking, but I don't know, there's not like we haven't seen this kind of before, especially considering the original black ceramic beast was released in 2023. So I just don't really see how this is such a groundbreaking release or something that's even that noteworthy. Again, considering it's just a small aesthetic nuance on the overall dial with the all black look and going from a small tapisserie dial to now a mega tapisserie dial. Otherwise, I think the watch looks nice. It is a great release. I'm sure it will sell over retail at least to begin with, but as we've seen with the all black ceramic beast, it actually trades now wholesale under retail. So again, another watch that I probably expected to sell over time under retail, but a great looking piece nonetheless. Now I want to save the Royal Oaks the best for last. So let's go into the release of the Code 1159s with a pair of new Quantième perpetuals, which are Code 1159 perpetual calendars, featuring the new perpetual calendar movement that Audemars Piguet launched this year with the release of these codes and the Royal Oak perpetual calendars that features a new system that essentially can set the entire perpetual calendar all through the crown. What's ingenious about this movement is it also has a 24-hour indicator to indicate the danger zone where you shouldn't be setting the perpetual calendar, which is a really cool touch. Now overall, is it a super innovative or ingenious caliber? I don't necessarily think so. Again, it's something IWC has been doing for, let's say, 40 plus years at this point. FP Journe does it, not to mention there's a bunch of other brands that do it. AP released in 2022 the Grand Complication Code 1159, which was an incredible release, a stunning release. And I assume it's actually the same base perpetual calendar movement, just with the other complication modules removed, because that is also a perpetual calendar wristwatch, which you can set directly through the crown. Now, overall, in terms of the aesthetic, the new Code 1159 perpetual calendar, again, is nothing crazy to write home about. It features the same kind of center guilloche with, okay, sure, the new Code 1159 movement, but pretty much just a Code 1159 perpetual calendar. And if I'm being quite honest, I think that the original Aventurine dial Code 1159 perpetuals with the older movement were a much more good-looking watch overall as opposed to this current release. Just my opinion, of course, but you can feel free to disagree in the comments. I think that the Aventurine dial perpetual calendar codes are one of the most slept on APs in general, right? Even though it's not a Royal Oak and that's what most people tend to go towards, I think it's such a stunning wristwatch and it's basically trading for half of its retail price, which is just insane to me considering how good looking of a watch it is. Now next up was another Code 1159, but this time in a newer, smaller case size, a 38mm case size with the flying tourbillon movement known as the RD3 movement, which was used in the 39mm ultra thin RD3. That is one of my all-time favorite Royal Oak watches, just an absolutely beautiful timepiece. Now, they did this in a 38mm case with diamond lugs, I guess to appeal to a more feminine crown. Makes sense. Overall, I don't know if it's that great of a release. It just feels like essentially all you did was take a movement, put it into a new code case, and then add diamond lugs to make it a little bit more feminine. But hey, I'm not AP. I don't know what's best for the brand, but by all means, I think it's not a bad release overall. I'd like to see AP experiment with this 38mm case size. I think that the 41mm case size of the Code 1159 does wear well overall, even for a small wrist. I have a pretty small wrist myself, and it suits me okay. But I think in 38, it's just more well suited because in the 41 size, it just feels like it's a lot of dial especially because a lot of the time these are mostly bezel-less watches. But yeah, overall these Code 1159 wristwatches, nothing personally I would write home about. I think that the Code 1159 tourbillons, especially the skeleton tourbillons that they did in the past, are way nicer looking. I think that the perpetual calendar Aventurine dial Code 1159, again, is way nicer looking than this newer one. So overall, I would actually look to the past as opposed to the current production line from AP to really get what I feel are some of the underrated gems from AP Code 1159 model lineup. Now, AP also released a new green ceramic offshore. Again, nothing too crazy, just another colorway. I think it is a very good looking watch, but nothing to write home about, nothing too crazy here. Just a nice looking offshore that we've seen before. Again, I think it's actually in a black ceramic case, which is interesting. So the ceramic and green adds a nice little high contrast to the overall watch itself. But generally, again, it's just a small aesthetic nuance in terms of the overall change in the watch itself. Nothing crazy to write home about, but I do like the looks of the watch. It actually looks like a very nice watch, and I like the fact that it has a newer strap change system, so you could swap out the straps really easily. It's an ingenious strap change system from AP, one of the best in the business in my opinion, and I really wish that they did it on the Royal Oak because it would really help to revolutionize that incredible bracelet of the Royal Oak, being able to add it on a rubber strap and a leather strap itself. Now let's move on to what I feel are some of the best releases, and of course it should come as no surprise, it's from the Royal Oak lineup, and these are two new Royal Oak perpetual calendars featuring Audemars Piguet's new system with respect to his perpetual calendar movement, what we also saw in the Code 1159 perpetual calendar. Now AP released two different perpetual calendars, one in stainless steel with like a bluish gray dial and one in sand gold with kind of a matching tone dial. Two really nice releases. I enjoy them. Do I think these are groundbreaking releases overall? Again, no, I don't think so. I think if you look back to the reference 26574ST, the original first generation dial, which can now be picked up around the $90,000 to $95,000 price point, I think that is a much better buy overall, considering the fact that this watch now retails, if I'm not mistaken, a little over $150,000. Yeah, essentially it's $109,000, which is going to be Swiss francs, so it's going to be like right around $130,000, $140,000 US dollars. I think that's a very high price to pay for a stainless steel perpetual calendar wristwatch, considering where the other Royal Oak perpetual calendars are at. I think that if you get those are much better looking watches overall than the newer releases. Just my personal opinion. Now, last but not least, it should come as no surprise that my favorite release is the skeleton perpetual calendar that AP released in actually a bimetal configuration, which is kind of a hallmark and a throwback to AP and their use of innovative materials and going back to kind of their roots with one of the most popular watches from AP and one of the most limited as well, which were those kind of two-toned or two-metal bimetal configurations of the Royal Oak, specifically in the perpetual calendar. Now here, this is essentially the going away party of the caliber 5135, so it doesn't house the newer movement. It's the last of the old movements. I think they're doing it actually in a limited edition of 150 pieces to mark the 150th anniversary of AP. And I look at this wristwatch, and although aesthetically it's absolutely gorgeous, right? There's nothing I can possibly say to really critique this wristwatch. It's beautiful. I look at this watch and I can't help but be reminded of the Vacheron Constantin Overseas Perpetual Calendar skeletonized that was released 3 or so years ago now. And I think aesthetically speaking, I actually like the Vacheron Overseas Perpetual Calendar skeleton over the Royal Oak Perpetual skeleton in this configuration. Again, you get kind of a white metal with the blue contrasting subdials and that skeletonized look. I don't know, there's something about the Overseas Perpetual that I personally like and that is more nuanced overall than versus the AP over here. Just my personal opinion, maybe it's the bimetal configuration also that I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of, although I like it pays tribute to AP's history. Just overall, I'm kind of underwhelmed at the fact that Vacheron did this about 3 years ago and I think did a better job overall. So guys, that's my kind of knee-jerk reaction to the AP releases. Now, AP has done in the past where they've released some watches to begin with, and then over the course of essentially 45 to 60 days, roughly 2 months, they did a bunch more releases. So I'm sure this is just the start of AP's releases for their 150th anniversary. Overall, I have to say these are nothing to write home about, nothing that crazy or earth-shattering overall. I like the fact that they produced a new caliber for the Royal Oak and just generally the perpetual calendars using only the crown, which I think is definitely an improvement, not having to use any more pushers, especially with AP perpetuals, which are an absolute disaster and annoyance and pain in the you-know-what to set. But overall, these are just nothing to write home about. I'm not like super shocked. My socks aren't blown off. There's nothing here that I haven't seen before overall from AP, just with minor aesthetic nuance that are changed overall. So yeah, that's just my feedback from the AP releases so far. I'm definitely looking forward to see what comes out for the rest of the year. But guys, let me know down in the comments what you think of AP's releases so far. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate if you hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. As always, my name is Marco for the Burdine Jewelry YouTube channel. I will see you guys in the next one.